There is a discussion that is happening on the fringes of the conversation in and around the voice, which is, and some Liberals are starting to push it, is that should there be a definition for Aboriginality? Should there be a definition to be declared as Indigenous? Now, we know that the Indigenous population increased in the last census and increased by, from memory, about 200,000 people, which was well and truly above birth rate. Yes, some presumably people went and redid their family history, and maybe some people were no longer ashamed about their family, but the point was, there was quite the jump, which has brought to some conversation about, do you need to make this clearer? And good luck to whoever wants to come up with the testing system here, but Linda, this feels like a third rail, but it is something that I know One Nation at the New South Wales election again is saying, we will introduce a test for Aboriginality. We will make sure that it is provable rather than claimable. What do you think?
I think it's divisive, and I think it's yet another way of the coalition secretly, behind the scenes, sending the message that they oppose the voice without wanting to say that in order to not try and offend the Teals. There is just no way that they can tie a neat bow around their positions, and these kind of statements where you have to legally define Aboriginality, I think just make the Liberal Party's job, frankly, it's not my job to give them advice, but it makes it even harder for them to appeal to a broader base than they have been able to achieve. I've said this repeatedly in the City of Sydney. We've got a fantastic Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander advisory panel. We've never needed to have a definition. It works incredibly well. That panel informs our council about all sorts of things, including flood mapping for the council, which we've used to underlay our planning controls and stops everybody's houses from being flooded, not just people.
So Julian Leeser, the Shadow Minister,
so many strong benefits,
was on Sky this morning, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading from an account of what was said there, right, which was, it's a matter for the government to clarify. He wants a clarification on the definition of Aboriginality. Let's be honest, even if you are hardcore, absolutely 100% no to the voice, we all know what Aboriginality is.
Well,
What, we're going to say only 1/3, as soon as you're 1/8, you're not Aboriginal anymore?
I listened to Lisa this morning, and you know that I think Jacinta Price
100%,
should be the Shadow Minister, not
I'm not a lefty tonight, but I'm just saying there's a couple of things. I think this stuff's
and the point
unnecessary.
he was making was that there is already in a number of pieces of legislation definitions of what Aboriginality is. It is a perfectly legitimate question to ask, which one are you going to pick? Because they exist already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to try and put that as spin on the way I saw Linda putting it, I don't think is right. I think the whole debate is racist. I want the race power removed from the Constitution, so you cannot make laws according to race. This is part of collectivisation. You don't make a judgment anymore about whether a person is a good person or someone who is upholding good standards or someone who's got inspiration to give to people. No. You've got to be part of this collective over here, and then we'll judge you according to the collective.
But
Whereas the individualism is the way we should be going, and it overcomes so many of these divisive issues. So it is a racist debate that is going on because of what Albanese has done. No other reason.
Fiona, again, my concern in all of this is if we were turning around and defining who is a Greek Australian, right? Oh, you can have your parents but not your grandparents. There has to be both parents, not one parent. It has to be, now I get it, right? The concept of our mixed race heritage of all of us as immigrants in all different ways is that despite the fact that, mum's from the same suburb, dad's from the same suburb, but one of their parents was from Scotland, you think part of you is Scottish. I think if you supplemented the word Aboriginality for Greek or Italian, people would see this as, we don't need this. So why would we need this for this?
There's no voice for Greeks or Italians.
I understand, but I'm saying of all the things that the Liberal Party could have done today, if they want to say no, say no. This is.
I think they should come out.
This
and
is
say no.
noise on the way to no, or it's noise putting off not saying no. That's what I think.
And it's divisive.
Fiona.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you, Paul. I mean, I I don't think this is I don't think this is really the argument to have around the voice. I think there's a lot of challenges with it all on its own. I mean, quite simply, if Albo can just legislate it, then just legislate it.
Correct.
Show us what it actually is. Show us what it means. Getting into the minutiae and the weeds of this sort of thing, I think, has the ability of upsetting and conflicting people. I do, however, appreciate in some aspect where Julian Leeser is coming from, having served in public sector boards and,
It's a good bloke.
And no, but also seeing that, I could identify as Aboriginal and somebody then can say, yes, you are Aboriginal, and therefore I am Aboriginal, even though I'm 46% Scottish and whatever, So, I mean, I've got ambiguity in part of my family history, but does that mean this or does that mean that? And so I appreciate that within the public sector there are a range of definitions that need to be determined as to what this means and all of those sorts of things. But I mean, I just don't think this is a very divisive type of comment to make. I think this is a very challenging policy area that, Anthony Albanese has gone into this, with so obsessed with the woke symbolism of it that he has not done any of the groundwork. He hasn't done anything to do with the land council issues that are different in every single state. In Sydney, for instance, if you've ever sat there and somebody has said to you, I acknowledge the Aurora to be from the Nepean River to the west, the Pacific Ocean to the east, the Georges River to the south, and the Hawkesbury to the north, they've just completely wiped out the Darug Nation. So which Aboriginal nations, which is the nation of Western Sydney. So which Aboriginal nations are getting the vote? Or is the vote going through land councils? I mean, there are so many bigger questions about this, rather than splitting hairs that if you have one drop of Aboriginal blood, therefore you are or therefore you are not. I don't think that is where this debate should be. And I think that just becomes very, very just hurtful and divisive.
As a dear friend's just texted me that there is already a High Court test, which is the Mabo era, that establishes the three-part test on Aboriginality, right? If that's the standard, then what is the conversation around this today?
The challenge, Paul, is that there is different rules running through the public sector, and that's the problem. That's what Lisa's trying to say here, is there are different rules.
My thing is, if they want to say no, say no.
That quote that came out of there is out of the context of which that whole interview took place, as I heard it this morning. So I just don't like it when it's done like that. It was one of 15 questions that Dutton put to the
That's how
answer.
it goes. You know that. But I'm saying, that out of context is how it works, right? I'm not saying it's fair, but whatever the most interesting thing out of 15
But
questions.
I did listen to the interview.
But
Yes.
Bronwyn also, he said it for that reason, right? Julian Leeser
didn't.
has said
As I
that
said,
today
there are
because he
already
knew that it would be
different
picked up
definitions
and
that are in the
discussed.
public sector, and he's asking which one are you going to pick.